This is Christopher Calandra, your host. The title of today's podcast is Marriage, Poverty Antidote. So to begin with, as a certified financial planner, I help people achieve their financial goals, including wealth accumulation, retirement, college funding, debt reduction, family protection, estate planning, and other financial services related items. My work and the work we do here at Osaic Wealth Management Services does not typically deal with the first priority people have financially. The first priority people have financially is to avoid poverty or to move out of poverty. I wanted to share today my opinions on marriage as an antidote to poverty. During this podcast, I'll draw on multiple resources to support my views on this subject. And I wanted to just advance the idea that as a financial planner, I'm aware of several success principles that lead to financial success, that lead to becoming rich. Some of them are things like dollar cost averaging, live beneath your means, save for retirement, be wise about debt, invest in the stock market, invest for the long term, and of course take advantage of tax-efficient vehicles like IRAs, 401ks, and the like. It seems to me that there are several keys to avoiding poverty, and marriage is one of these keys. It is an antidote for poverty. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I think it's a little funny that I'm going to speak so highly of marriage because I've been married 21 years, and like lots of married couples, my wife and I often joke about the miseries of being married. And when I'm with my friends, especially my male friends, there is always the ongoing jokes and criticisms about the marriage, the difficulties of being married. But the reality is when we look at economics and poverty, marriage is an incredibly important institution. So I wanted to cite, first off, the Brookings Institution did some amazing and powerful research, and they came up with what they called the success sequence. These are 4 things that you need to do, and you should do in the correct sequence. The 4 things are, number 1, receive a high school diploma. Number 2, get a job. Number 3, then get married. Number 4, then have your first child. Doing these 4 things and doing them in the correct sequence greatly increase the odds that both the parents, and get this, and their children will succeed. Succeed economically, succeed socially, as well as in terms of health status and life satisfaction. So again, the 4 things are receive a high school diploma, get a job, get married, then have your first child. Doing those things in order and doing all 4 of them has a very, very powerful influence on whether you will be in poverty or not. Many organizations have kind of expanded or taken a different look of this underlying success sequence. I wanted to cite next the American Enterprise Institute found that married men have a higher average income. The Heritage Organization found that the poverty rate for a single mom with only a high school degree is 31% likely to be in poverty. So basically, single mom with a high school degree, 1 in 3 chance that individual is in poverty. But a married couple headed by an individual with a high school degree, meaning that neither partner has college degree or anything like that, the rate goes from 31% down to 5.6%, meaning that marriage drops the odds of being poor by 80%. The New York Times did some terrific articles and research on this subject as well. I want to give a quote from New York Times. The New York Times said, "Marriage drives well-being and upward mobility. The absence of marriage diminishes it. Thus, the growing class defied any smart and compassionate effort to alleviate poverty and increase the well-being of our communities and its citizens cannot ignore this fact." So the major thrust of the New York Times research and argument is that anything that we do to try and alleviate poverty should include a discussion about the importance of marriage. And I think all of this research that I've read and we're going to talk about here today emphasizes this point. The problem in the country is that about 40, and I've read some studies that say as much as 55%, but let's just use 40% of babies born in the U.S. are to unwed mothers. And the breakdown, when you look at different ethnic communities in the U.S., you get differences there as well. So, for example, about 25% of babies born in the U.S. to white mothers are born out of wedlock, but in the Hispanic community, it's 42%, and in the Black or African American community, it's 72%. That 72% number I find, number one, surprising, and number two, very disturbing in light of this research we're going through today. The purpose of this podcast is not to delve into the complex and sensitive issue on race, but I did want to touch upon a few really key statistics that I find very, very jarring. The first one is among Black married couples, the poverty rate is about 6.9%. While the rate for non-married Black families was 7 times higher at 35%. So, to repeat myself, among Black married couples, the poverty rate is about 6.9%, while the rate for non-married Black families was 7 times higher at 35%. Again, very, very jarring statistic. As we wrap up, a key quote, probably my favorite, or one of my favorite economists is Larry Kudlow. He wrote an article on this very subject not too long ago. What Larry Kudlow said is the following: the trouble is, in our society, we are doing this backwards. People don't finish school, don't take a job, don't get married, but do have kids. Wrong order, wrong formula. I really love that quote. I think it kind of captures the essence of what all of the deep academic research shows. And again, I think it's somewhat comical because my friends that listen to this will certainly tease me because of all the jokes we have about marriage and the troubles of being in marriage. But again, the reality is, from an economic standpoint, the institution of marriage is helpful in both men and women earning more money, their children not being in poverty, they themselves not being in poverty. And my thought is that it would be great if families from disadvantaged backgrounds, whether it's ethnic backgrounds, immigrants, cultural, based on education, whatever, are aware of the success sequence and the importance of marriage. I also think it would be wonderful if our leaders, politicians, both at the federal and local level, along with the various noble organizations that help our communities and the disadvantaged, that they are aware of the success sequence and the importance of marriage as they work very, very hard to help those in need in our country, because marriage will not be the end-all to be-all. It does not solve all the ills of any individual or family, but it seems to me should be central to any discussion on how we could alleviate the poverty issue in this country. So this is a much shorter podcast than typical, but it was an important topic in my mind. I appreciate you listening. You can get more information about me, the team, and the work we do here at Elliott Wealth Management by visiting our website, www.elliottwealth.com. Elliott has 2 L's and 2 T's. You also can subscribe to the podcast by going to iTunes and Stitcher. In fact, I would be very appreciative if you would subscribe, and even more appreciative if you would share this podcast with friends, family, coworkers, on social media, or by word of mouth. That would be really wonderful. I will be back with you on an upcoming episode of the Simply Financial podcast very soon.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of Osaic Wealth, Inc., and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Please note, the information being provided is strictly as a courtesy. When you link to any of the websites provided here, you are leaving this website. We make no representation as to the completeness or accuracy of information provided at these websites. Nor is the company liable for any direct or indirect technical or system issues, or any consequences arising out of your access to or your use of third-party technologies, websites, information, and programs made available through this website. When you access one of these websites, you are leaving our website and assume total responsibility and risk for your use of the websites you are linking to. Securities and advisory services are offered through Osaic Wealth, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC. Insurance services offered through Elliott Wealth Management Services, LLC, not affiliated with Osaic Wealth, Inc.